Have you ever hoped someone would finally see your truth only to be invalidated? Are you tired of being told there are two sides to a story when one side is a lie? Does your body brace for a fight the moment you have to defend your reality? Greetings, peace, and love, everybody. I am Amadi Ogamma, your spiritual liberation coach and strategist, and you are tuned into the light frequency, a broadcast from a light in the fog of war, here to guide you to the anchor within. Welcome to your sacred space, your true family. Welcome to this sacred space. Today, we are opening the field manual for a critical piece of battlefield intelligence. In other words, we're going to break down a very tough situation and give you a real-life tool you can actually use. This is your strategic briefing on navigating invalidation. Part 1, the foundational strategy. Before we begin, I invite you to take a deep breath with me. As you exhale, release the weight of being on guard. Just for these next few moments, you can lower your shield. Here, your reality will not be cross-examined. Your experience is the only authority. That just means you don't have to prove what happened to you or defend your story. Here, you are believed. Period. In this first part, we will lay the essential groundwork, deconstructing the traps set for you and establishing the core strategies for holding your ground. In part 2, we will cover the advanced tactics for what to do when these strategies are met with resistance. Before we go deeper, let's establish some foundational language for our discussion today. Giving a name to the darkness is the first step in taking away its power. This ensures we are all on the same page, moving forward with clarity together. The first term you will hear is the hope trap. In strategic terms, this describes a post-traumatic reflex where a survivor, upon encountering a potential authority or helper, prematurely drops their defenses in the desperate hope of rescue, making them highly vulnerable to mismanagement and further invalidation. Think of it this way. It's that feeling when you're so desperate for someone to finally believe you that you tell them everything at once before you know if they're actually safe. Next, you will hear me refer to the middle ground fallacy. This is the flawed and dangerous assumption that a fair compromise exists between a factual account of abuse and an abuser's fabricated narrative, a line of thinking that inherently validates the lie. Simply put, it's the toxic idea that the truth is somewhere in the middle, which is impossible when you're averaging a truth and a lie. It is a trick used to excuse the abuser. Finally, we will talk about strategic testimony. This is the conscious and skilled practice of sharing one's experience in a way that prioritizes safety, maintains control of the narrative, and adapts to the listener to ensure the truth is heard without causing further harm to oneself. This just means telling your story with a smart plan. It's about being the skilled expert on your own experience, not a victim begging to be believed. This message is for the one who knows, the one who has seen things that others refuse to see. I am speaking directly to my young people, trying to grow in the shadow of a parent or two who block the sun. To my neurodivergent souls, my beautiful minds with ADHD, my autistic spirits, and to every soul who has been smeared with the label of unstable or mentally ill by the very family or cult that caused the wounds. If this is you, stay with me, because I need to talk to you about one of the most vulnerable moments of all. Part 1, the hope trap. It's that moment when, after years of darkness, you finally find yourself in front of someone who might help. A professional, a mediator, an authority figure. And deep within you, a spark of hope ignites. It's a natural post-traumatic reflex. You think, this is it. This is the one who will see me. This is the cavalry coming to save me. And in that moment of hope, you feel it's finally safe to drop your shield. It feels safe to open the floodgates and bare everything, raw and unfiltered, believing this person is your harbor. And here is the hardest, most vital truth I will share with you today. That feeling, that beautiful, desperate hope for a savior, is one of the most dangerous traps of all. No one wants to finally meet their potential cavalry and still have to keep their guard up. It feels exhausting. It feels cynical. But your vigilance is not cynicism. It is wisdom earned in the fire. It is not your fault that you hope for a rescuer, but I am here to break the news and to arm you. We must reprogram this reflex. We are moving you from a hopeful surrender to one of strategic testimony. You are about to become your own cavalry. Part 2, deconstructing the lie. This strategic testimony is necessary because your hope makes you vulnerable to a dangerous lie, the lie of the middle ground. It happens in that room where you are trying to tell your story. A person looks at you with reasonable eyes and says they need to hear both sides. Let me be absolutely clear. The moment someone starts looking for a halfway point between your lived reality and an abuser's calculated fabrication, they have already abandoned you. There is no middle ground between a fact and a lie. There is no average between your trauma and their performance. To seek one is an act of violence against your spirit. It validates their pathology. It communicates that their campaign of psychological torment is just as legitimate as the pain it caused you. And how do they justify this? Often with a tired, toxic cliche. They say, well, it takes two to tango. Family. True family. What you were in was not a dance. A tango requires two willing partners. You were in a hunt. Your role was not one of partnership. It was one of survival. They will point to your reaction, your tears, your anger, the moment you finally yelled back after relentless provocation. And they will strip it out of all context. They will hold up your desperation as their justification, creating a false balance to soothe their own conscience and close the case. Part 3, understanding the players. To protect yourself, you must become a student of the room. You must recognize who is sitting across from you. First, you have the uncomfortable peacemaker. This person isn't malicious, but their personal comfort is more important than your truth. Then you have the flying monkey. This person has been co-opted by the abuser. They enter not as a neutral party, but as an agent of the person who harmed you. And finally, the most dangerous, the fellow traveler. This person operates on the same dark logic as the abuser. They are not mediating, they are siding with their own kind. Part 4. The target's truth. The reason you must understand all of this is because of who you are. Understand this profoundly. You are not targeted for your weakness. You are targeted for your strength. Your brain is a finely tuned truth detector. You feel the dissonance. You see the patterns. And your inability to just go along with it makes you a threat to a system built on lies. The smear campaign was never a diagnosis. It was a preemptive strike to discredit your testimony before you could even speak. Part 5. The body's alarm. Before you can even begin to speak, your body sounds the alarm. You have to recognize this feeling, true family, because it is the first sign that you will need to protect yourself. The moment you face that person who holds power over your story, you feel it. A flush of heat up your neck. Your stomach clenches into a cold, hard knot. Your throat tightens, and suddenly the words you practice feel like they've just vanished. Your heart starts hammering against your ribs. A frantic drumbeat of danger, danger, danger. Maybe there's a low buzzing in your ears as the world outside seems to fade away. And right behind those feelings come the thoughts. The echoing, post-traumatic whispers. They won't believe me. What if I say it wrong? It's my fault. I'm exaggerating. Here we go again. Those are not your thoughts, true family. Those are the ghostly whispers of your abuser's voice, playing on a loop from deep within your nervous system. This is your body's memory of every past betrayal, igniting in real time. This is not a weakness. This is a perfectly functioning alarm system. Its visceral body experience is the internal trigger. And the moment you feel it is the moment your new training begins. Part 6. The internal practice. This is how we navigate. Your practice begins the moment you feel that alarm in your body. The first 2 steps are internal. They are for you alone, and they are your foundation. Step 1. Pause. The moment you hear the question, the moment you feel that knot in your stomach, don't speak. Just stop. That 1 second of silence is a revolution. Step 2. Anchor. In that silence, drop an anchor deep into your being and speak this truth to yourself silently. I know what I experienced, and I will tell my truth safely. Part 7. The external strategy. Strategic vulnerability. Now we move to the external. Your strategy must adapt to your audience, to the battlefield. This is not about changing your story. It's about changing your delivery to ensure your story can be heard. Let's first arm you with the formal language for institutional settings: the courtroom, the HR office, the evaluator suite. Let's walk through the first and often most intimidating situation: when you're speaking to a professional. This could be a social worker, a therapist, or anyone in a position of authority. This person is trained to analyze everything you say for deflection or resistance. Your goal is to guide them to the truth by framing it as a cooperative effort. If they ask, "What part did you play in this?" Your vulnerable state and redirect is, "I'm glad you asked about that, because my reaction is definitely a part of the story. But to be honest, it gets confusing for me, and I'm worried I'll misrepresent it if I don't explain it in order. To understand why I reacted that way, we have to look at what happened right before. Is it okay if I walk you through it chronologically, step by step, so you can have a full picture?" Let's break down what you just did. You were cooperative, not resistant. You framed your need for context not as defiance, but as a desire for accuracy. You basically invited them to see the whole movie, not just the last scene. You invited them into your process, making it harder for them to shut you down without appearing unreasonable themselves. If they suggest, "Are you sure you aren't being too sensitive?" Your vulnerable state and redirect is, "That's a fair question. I can see how a single reaction on its own might look that way. That's why the context is so important. What I felt was a direct response to a specific pattern of behavior. Can I describe that pattern to you?" Here's the power in that. You validated their question by saying, "That's a fair question," which disarms them, but you immediately pivoted back to the facts when you said, "a specific pattern of behavior." You're saying, "My feelings aren't random. They are connected to real events. Let's talk about the events." You are calmly, strategically steering the conversation back to the truth, demonstrating that your feelings are rooted in reality. Do you see the pattern here? You are asking if you can tell your story based on your own experience in your own terms, but in a way that allows the assessor to lean into your voice instead of the voice in their head, given to them by the narrative of the narcissist or some other pre-existing biases they already have. On your delivery. When you are communicating these things, true family, try to keep it monotone. Don't allow the rising and falling of your voice. Don't allow your emotions to lead your delivery. To them, that sense of emotionality communicates hypersensitivity, which in turn contributes to the narcissist's narrative of you being unstable or unwell. Now, that language is your armor for the system. But what about when the gatekeeper is someone you love? We must transmute these tools for the intimate battlefield of the kitchen table. The principles are the same, family, but the language must be different. Let's walk through it again. You're trying to explain what happened, and a family member cuts you off with, "Just tell me what you did to make them so mad." First, you pause and you anchor. Then, you use the down-to-earth version of the recentering statement. Then, "Just tell me what you did." You, "I can't answer that until you let me explain what led up to it. If you really want to understand, you have to let me start from the beginning." Let's feel into that. You're not being cold or corporate. You are setting a firm, loving boundary. You're basically saying, "My story deserves to be told right from start to finish." You are saying, "I am willing to share my truth with you, but only if you are willing to truly listen. My story is not a soundbite." You are inviting them to a higher level of communication. If they push back again, no, I just want to know your part in it. You escalate to the personal version of the impact and consequence statement. Okay, I need to be real with you. If you keep cutting me off and won't let me explain the full picture, then it feels like you're choosing to misunderstand me. And if that's the case, then we can't have a real conversation about this. Here's the power in that. You are no longer talking about a report. You are talking about the relationship. Consequence is not an inaccurate file. The consequence is the potential end of the conversation. You're telling them, if you won't respect my story, you don't get my story. You are telling them, the price of admission to my story is respect. If you can't pay that price, the door is closed. And what about naming the dynamic at the kitchen table? This one is the most powerful and the most delicate. Them. You're always so dramatic. You just need to let things go. You. I need to point something out. It feels like every time I try to explain how I was hurt, you immediately change the subject to how I'm reacting. It makes it feel like you're not actually interested in what happened, just in managing my feelings. Is that what's happening here? This is sacred, vulnerable truth telling. You are holding up a mirror to the dynamic. You are not accusing, you are observing. You are gently asking, do you see what you're doing right now? You're giving them a chance to see their own pattern and to choose a different way. You are doing the hard, beautiful work of fighting for a real connection, even in the face of betrayal. Let's put this all together and honor the foundational work we've done in part 1. To put it simply, here are the main truths to hold on to. First, we identified the hope trap, that natural, desperate hope for a savior that makes you vulnerable, and the need to shift from a hopeful surrender to a strategic testimony. What this really means is we learn to spot that moment when you're so desperate to be saved that you trust too soon. And we talked about the power of shifting from just hoping someone will believe you to having a smart plan for telling your truth. Second, we learn to recognize the body's alarm, the visceral, physical response to a threat, not as a weakness, but as your internal trigger to activate your strategy. This is about honoring that knot in your stomach, that heat in your neck. We reframe that feeling not as anxiety or weakness, but as your own built-in alarm system telling you, okay, it's time to be strategic. Third, we establish the core tactics for that strategy. The internal practice of the pause and anchor, and the external methods of the vulnerable redirect and the acknowledge and pivot, along with their personal down-to-earth counterparts. And finally, we put names to the tools in your new toolkit for both the courtroom and the kitchen table. The pause and anchor is about taking that one silent second to get your footing. The external tools are just smart, calm ways to handle professionals and family members, making sure you stay in control of your own story. Now, we put this wisdom into practice. This is your sacred invitation for the week. Your invitation to reclaim your power this week is this. I invite you to focus on your internal world. When you feel that body's alarm, the heat, the tight stomach, the racing heart. Your only mission is to execute step 1. Pause. Don't react. Don't speak. Just create that 1 second of sacred silence and breathe. Master the pause. It is the critical first step upon which all the advanced tactics we will discuss in part 2 are built. That is how you begin to build your inner anchor. This is how we navigate. This is not about being cynical. This is about being strategic. You are protecting your story, the most sacred thing you own. They are counting on your confusion, so you meet them with clarity. They are counting on your hope-fueled surrender, so you will meet them with calm, strategic testimony. They are counting on your self-doubt, so you will meet them with the unshakable truth of your own experience. Hold your ground, family. Hold your ground, black sheep. Hold your ground, scapegoat. Use your wisdom. Your peace will be your proof. Before we go, thank you for being a part of this. If this signal reached you today, here's how you can help it reach others. Every like, comment, and share helps this light cut through the static and find someone else who is still navigating the fog. Be sure to follow so you can never lose this frequency. Thank you for helping to hold this space. We are all in this together. Finally, the lighthouse exists to illuminate the specific fog you are navigating. Your experience, your questions, and the specific tactics the darkness is using against you are the coordinates that guide this light. In other words, I need to hear from you. What are you dealing with right now? What specific scenarios, manipulations, or systemic injustices do you need me to break down in a future transmission? I've left a secure, anonymous link in the description where you can submit your requests. While I cannot respond to everyone, I see them, and they will help steer this broadcast to where it is most needed. I am Amadi Ogamma, your spiritual liberation coach and strategist, a light in the fog of war, guiding you to the anchor within.